If the resistance is violent, shoot and shoot him dead.
The human rights crisis has deepened.
Mr. Panelo, is he a killer, your president?
No, he's not. He would have not won the presidency if that is not his style.
Rodrigo Duterte rose to power in the Philippines using his image as a tough guy.
Either you kill me or I will kill you, idiots.
Since he took power in 2016, extrajudicial killings have become routine and the country has seen a crackdown on civil society. Dozens of journalists have been killed and attacked, media outlets silenced, and the situation has only become worse during the COVID-19 pandemic. The virus will pass, but can the Philippines ever hold the spread of impunity? Let's dig in the conflict zone files. According to the government's own account, more than 5,600 citizens have been killed by the police over the last 4 years. Taking into account drug-related killings carried out by unidentified vigilantes, the number of victims rises to 16,355.
Hitler massacred 3 million Jews. There's a 3 million drug addicts. I'd be happy to slaughter him.
He was, in fact, elected on the back of a promise.
Overwhelmingly at that.
On the back of a promise to kill, wasn't he?
He works within the context of the law. We can kill out of self-defense, yes.
But the claims of self-defense are not so clear-cut. A UN report from June 2020 pointed to repeatedly recovered guns bearing the same serial numbers from different victims in different locations. This fact could indicate guns had been planted as evidence after the killings of unarmed victims.
Victims' families are tasked with coming up with their own evidence of events, and that's very difficult when you have police who won't provide police reports of the killing, when you have families who can't afford lawyers to gather that evidence or to even file that evidence. Courts are very dependent on witness testimony, and when you don't have witnesses who are willing to come forward to testify in cases, it becomes very difficult. So families can't find these witnesses to come forward. These witnesses themselves are very scared. Police are patrolling neighborhoods where these people still live, and pretty freely.
As a result of the thousands of investigations into these killings, only one has led to any convictions.
The High Commissioner's June 2020 Human Rights Council report on the Philippines documented a serious lack of due process in police operations and near total impunity for the use of lethal force by the police and the military. We urge the police to take urgent measures to prevent the use of excessive force resulting in loss of lives during law enforcement operations. We also call on the government and members of security forces to refrain from rhetoric that may lead to violations and instead make public commitments to uphold human rights and the rule of law.
Another troubling trend is the rise in the use of what's known as red tagging as a tool of silencing criticism. In 2018, the Department of Justice listed 649 people labeled as terrorists. Among them were known human rights defenders and political activists.
And the human rights groups that you hate say as many as 12,000.
I hate the human rights group.
You don't?
They dispute what they claim.
What we've seen is that government critics, human rights defenders, political activists have been targeted by red tagging, which means that they are at more risk of being killed, for instance, being arbitrarily arrested and detained, and in danger of being subject to other types of abuses, threats, harassment, for instance.
In 2018, the United Nations listed the Philippines among the countries where activists are subjected to alarming and shameful levels of harsh reprisal and intimidation. Local human rights groups in the Philippines have documented 316 killings of activists and human rights defenders since Duterte came to power.
There is a history of human rights advocates being red-tagged or being accused of being fronts for the armed wing of the Communist Party in the Philippines. In our June 2020 report, the High Commissioner warned that such public labeling has proved extremely dangerous, and she urged the protection of human rights defenders, journalists, and others at risk. In recent months, there have been dozens of other activists and several journalists arrested.
Red tagging is also used against environmental activists. In 2019, the Philippines was second deadliest country in the world for people defending the environment, with 43 killings. Soon after his election, Duterte made clear where he stood on the freedom of the press. Just because you're a journalist, you are not exempt from assassination. Freedom of expression cannot help you if you have done something wrong.
We've seen a crackdown on the media and other critics of the government, which has had an increasingly chilling effect on the right to freedom of expression in the country.
Since Duterte came to power, there have been 171 documented cases of threats and attacks against the media. 18 journalists have been killed.
We've seen prominent journalists like Maria Ressa, editor of the online news outlet Rappler, being hit with charges of cyber libel, charges of tax evasion, which we believe at Amnesty are trumped up charges, so politically motivated charges. We've also seen the shutdown of a major media network, ABS-CBN, another outlet which was doing a lot of investigative reporting and often critical of the government as well.
The United Nations had this description for what has happened in the Philippines under President Duterte. A heavy-handed focus on countering national security threats and illegal drugs has resulted in serious human rights violations in the Philippines. Office of the UN Human Rights High Commissioner, June 2020. In 2022, Duterte's term as president is due to end. What legacy will he leave behind?
What I have is an ordinary leadership. If I can lead this nation to hindi naman greatness, but I would like to promise you a comfortable life under me. Comfortable.
You're heading towards a dictatorship in this country.
No, I don't think so.
Because Mr. Duterte promised it back in October 2015.
No, what
he said it's going to be a dictatorship. It's the police and the military who will be the backbone. At that time, he said about the presidency, I won't do it if you want to place me there with a solemn pledge to stick to the rules. If you don't want that, okay, look for another son of a bitch.
When he was a candidate, he said, if all things fail, if Congress opposes things that I want to have it in place, then I'll declare a revolutionary government. You must remember that this is an election, and this particular promise or commitment is or was factored in. So when the people voted him in office, they expect him to do that.
What, to have a dictatorship?